Mark Jennings slammed his fist on the desk, the sound ricocheting through the open-plan office like a gunshot. The new head of design, barely a month into his role at Chicago's premier architectural firm, glared at me, his steel gray eyes slicing through the haze of fluorescent light. Around us, the office stalled pens hovered over notepads, keyboards fell silent, and the distant hum of the city's skyline beyond the glass walls faded into irrelevance. The sleek, modern space, with its minimalist furniture and transparent partitions, suddenly felt like a cage. I swallowed, my throat parched. They're still drafts, Mark. The concept's... Concept? He cut me off, leaning so close I could smell the stale coffee on his breath. I don't give a damn about concepts, Miller. I need finished work. Clients don't sit around for your daydreams. His voice hit like a sledgehammer, each syllable a blow to my gut. I gripped the edge of my chair, the room shrinking around me. I'll revise them right away. Right away? He sneered, his 6-foot frame towering over my desk. Too late. This project's my career, me life. I'm not letting some rookie screw it up. The air thickened with his arrogance, a palpable weight pressing down on the room. Once, this office had pulsed with Collaboration Jones crunching numbers with his quiet precision, Sarah sketching bold ideas with a grin that lit up the space. Now, Mark's shadow smothered it all. I glanced at the floor-to-ceiling windows, where half-finished skyscrapers stabbed at the gray Chicago sky. They used to spark ideas in me, visions of steel and glass reaching for the stars. Today, they loomed like accusations. Those curves of yours? Mark snatched my blueprint off the desk, his thick fingers crumpling the edges. Pretty sure, but they're a cost nightmare. Clients want practical, not your artsy bullshit. I'll adjust them to fit the budget, I said, forcing my voice steady despite the heat flaring in my chest. Good. My order's your job. Got it? He smirked, a predator savoring the kill, then strode off, his polished shoes clicking against the hardwood floor. Alone, I stared at the mangled blueprint, my hands clenching the paper until my knuckles whitened. Jones used to say the Skyline Tower could redefine Chicago's future sleek, sustainable, a beacon of progress. Sarah dreamed of weaving eco-friendly tech into its bones, her sketches a dance of form and function. Where was that spirit now? Mark had crushed it under his heel, and I felt the loss settle into my marrow. I grabbed my jacket and slipped into the hallway, desperate for air. The office's sterile scent cleaner and recycled air followed me like a ghost. Sarah looked up from her desk, her fingers pausing over her keyboard. "You okay, Miller?" "Managing," I muttered, shrugging to mask the tremor in my hands. "Just keeping up with Mark." She frowned, her hazel eyes softening. "He's been brutal, especially to you. Don't let him break you. We know what you've got." Her kindness stung, a reminder of what we'd lost. "Thanks, Sarah." In the break room, Jones stirred sugar into his coffee, his lined face heavy with exhaustion. "Mark's got it out for you, huh?" "Yeah," I said, pouring my own cup. The steam curled up, warming my face a fleeting escape. "No clue why." "He's flexing," Jones grunted, his voice a low rumble. "New guy, big ego. Don't take it personal." I nodded, but the words clung to me like damp clothes. Back at my desk, I reworked the designs. Mark's insults looping in my head amateurish. Rookie, pie in the sky. The office emptied as dusk bled through the windows, leaving me with the hum of the HVAC and a stubborn flicker of resolve. Tomorrow, I'd push back. Somehow. As I packed up, a sticky note on my monitor caught my eye. Mark's blocky scrawl, "Meeting tomorrow, 8 a.m. sharp. Don't be late," I sighed, bracing for another round of his venom. That night, I lay awake in my cramped apartment, the city lights painting jagged shadows across the ceiling. The distant hum of traffic seeped through the walls, a restless lullaby. I traced my path to this moment years of late nights, studying architecture, sketching dreams on napkins, and finally landing a gig at one of Chicago's top firms. My first day had been electric. Jones clapping me on the shoulder, showing me the ropes. Sarah handing me a coffee with a grin, her enthusiasm contagious. We toasted to the Skyline Tower over beers at a dive bar, vowing to build something groundbreaking. Now, with Mark in charge, those dreams felt like ash. I needed a plan. Confronting him head-on was a gamble, And going over his head to the CEO could backfire. Allies, that's what I needed. Jones and Sarah were still here, their faith in me a lifeline. I'd start there. The next morning, I dragged myself to the office early, fueled by black coffee and grit. The meeting room was already buzzing when I slipped in, taking a seat near the back to dodge Mark's radar. No such luck. He stormed in, his presence sucking the oxygen from the room. All right, let's get started, he barked, skipping the pleasantries. We've got a lot to cover, and I expect everyone to be on their game. He launched into a tirade about the project's progress, shredding every design in his path. When he reached my section, he paused, his gaze locking onto mine like a missile. Miller, your revisions are still garbage. Step it up or I'll reassign you. Blood rushed to my face, but I kept my voice level. I'm working on it, Mark. Updated designs by end of day. See that you do, he snapped, moving on. After the meeting, Sarah caught me in the hallway, her brow creased. That was rough. You okay? I'm fine, I lied, forcing a tight smile. Just gotta focus. If you need help, I'm here, she said. We're a team, remember? Thanks, Sarah. Means a lot. Back at my desk, I dove into the revisions, determined to prove him wrong. But something nagged at me the changes he demanded felt off, like they undermined the design's integrity. I pulled up the original blueprints and compared them to his edits. My breath caught. The materials he'd specified were cheaper, flimsier steel swapped for subpar alloys, insulation thinned out. If these went through, the Skyline Tower wouldn't just be ugly. It'd be a death trap. My heart hammered as the pieces clicked. This wasn't incompetence. It was deliberate. Mark was cutting costs, but why? Profit? Kickbacks? Whatever it was, I had to dig deeper. I spent the day sifting through files, cross-referencing specs and orders. By nightfall, with the office deserted, I built a stack of evidence pointing straight at Mark. But it wasn't enough not yet. I needed something undeniable to take to the CEO. As I packed up, Jones poked his head into my cubicle. Still here, Miller? Go home, get some rest. Soon, I said, just tying up loose ends. He nodded, his concern lingering as he shuffled off. Maybe he could help me figure this out. The next day, I cornered him at lunch, my nerves jangling. Jones, can we talk? Private? He raised an eyebrow but followed me to a quiet corner. What's up? I took a deep breath and dove in. I found irregularities in the Skyline Tower designs. Mark swapping materials for cheap junkets compromising safety. His eyes widened, coffee cup pausing mid-sip. That's heavy, Miller. You got proof? Some documents, but I need more. I'm building a case for the CEO. Careful, he warned, voice low. Mark's got clout. If he catches wind, he'll bury you. I know, but I can't let this slide. People could die. He studied me, then nodded. You're right, I'm in whatever you need. Relief flooded me. Thanks, Jones. With his backing, I felt a spark of hope. But the road ahead was a minefield, and I'd have to tread lightly. Days later, I hunched over the Skyline Tower blueprints, a cold knot twisting in my gut. My revision streamlined curves, budget-friendly, but solid spec shad vanished. Someone had gutted them, replacing steel beams with flimsy knockoffs. I traced the changes in the system, my fingers trembling over the keyboard. Mark's name flashed up, bold and unapologetic. What the hell? I whispered, pulse racing. Was he slashing costs this deep on purpose? The thought sank into me like ice. Mark had been a cost-cutting zealot since day one, bulldozing our objections with his bluster. But this wasn't trimming fat, this was fraud. If the tower went up with these materials, it'd collapse under a strong wind. Lives would be lost, blood on the concrete. I shook my head. No way. But the evidence stared back, cold and hard. I grabbed the blueprints and bolted for the archives, my sneakers squeaking on the polished floor. The room smelled of dust and old ink, shelves sagging under decades of files. I tore into the Skyline Tower records, flipping through yellowed pages, until I hit paid original specs, replaced with cheap substitutes. Mark's signature scrawled across every change. This is nuts, I muttered, hands shaking as I photocopied the proof. He was betting lives for a fatter paycheck. It was unforgivable. Fear clawed at me, sharp and insistent. Mark wasn't just a bully, he had power connections, sway with the brass. Crossing him could torch my career, leave me blacklisted in this city. But staying quiet? That'd eat me alive. I'd gotten into architecture to build legacies, not graves. Back at my desk, I stared out at Chicago's glittering lights. The city felt heavier now, its shine dulled by what I knew. If this thing falls, who takes the blame? I murmured. Mark could frame Meppin' it on the rookie who botched the revisions. I couldn't let that happen. I fired up my laptop, diving into revision logs, material orders, cost reports. Hours melted away, my coffee turning cold beside me. Then I found ITAN email from Mark to a supplier, promising extras for the switch. Kickbacks, plain as day. My smoking gun. This is it, I said, a grim smile tugging at my lips. But dread lingered. Mark wouldn't go quietly, he'd fight dirty. I needed more armor. Next morning, I slipped back into the archives, heart thudding as footsteps echoed outside. I ducked behind a shelf, peering through the gap. Mark stormed in, rifling through files, his jaw clenched tight. He swore under his breath and stomped out, slamming the door. Too damn close. Later, I tracked down Tom, a jittery junior architect with a knack for details. You ever see Mark messing with stuff alone? I asked, voice hushed. He fidgeted, then nodded. Yeah, thought it was odd, but who calls him out? This is bigger than odd, I said. Lives are at stake. You with me? Tom paled, his Adam's apple bobbing, but he nodded. Okay, I'm in. His support lit a flicker of hope. I wasn't alone or not yet. I started noticing Mark's pattern. She was always the last out, often hauling files home. Was he doctoring them off hours? One night, I stayed late, hiding in a storage closet near his office. Door cracked. Hours dragged, my legs cramping, until I heard his voice. Adjust those invoices, he growled into his phone. No trace of the originals, got it? I strained for more, but he hung up and left. Frustrated, I stumbled out, resolve hardening. I needed those invoices. Next day, I roped Tom into the hunt. We scoured financial records for hours, but half the paperwork was gone or doctored. He's too good, Tom groaned, rubbing his temples. No, I snapped. There's something we're missing. Then it clicked: cloud storage. Digital backups might have slipped his net. I logged in, digging through archives until I struck gold. A folder labeled Skyline Tower, original specs. Untouched blueprints, pristine orders. Jackpot. Yes, I hissed, fist pumping. This is it. Tom peered over my shoulder, eyes wide. How'd you find this? Mark slipped up, I said. Or didn't think we'd look. With this, I had a real shot, but caution not at Maeve. He knew he'd shred it all. I made copies, stashed them in my apartment, my car, a friend's place. Encrypted the digital files and emailed them to a burner account. Paranoid? Sure. Necessary? Damn right. The stress started carving me hollow. I'd jolt awake from nightmare towers crumbling, screams echoing, fingers pointing at me. At work, I scanned every shadow, waiting for Mark to pounce. One afternoon, Sarah caught me looking like death warmed over. Miller, take a break. This is killing you. Can't, I rasped. Not till it's done. Let me help, she pressed. What do you need? I hesitated, then caved. Watch Mark. Tell me if he pulls anything weird. Done, she said. I'll be your eyes. Her vigilance eased the pressure, but not much. Mark's stares grew sharper, like he could smell the fight in me. One evening, as I headed out, he called, Miller, a word. My heart stuttered, but I faced him. Yeah? He smiled, all teeth, no warmth. You've been burning the midnight oil. Dedicated, huh? Just getting it right, I said. Neutral as stone. Good, he replied. We need that. Keep it up. He sauntered off, and I exhaled, shaky. Was he probing, or just flexing? The uncertainty chewed at me. I had to move fast, give him time, and he'd bury me. My case was solid, but not bulletproof. I spent days triple-checking every detail, building a presentation for James Smith, the CEO. When I was ready, I booked the meeting, palms slick with sweat. Knocking on Smith's door, I felt the weight of it all. Come in, he called. He offered a thin smile, waving me to a chair. Skyline Tower trouble, Miller? Yeah, I said, laying out my files. Mark's rigging its cheap materials, cooked books. Smith's brow creased as I walked him through it logs, emails, the works. This is serious, he said, voice flat. It's a disaster waiting to happen, I pushed. If it collapses, hold it, he cut in, leaning back. Mark's a star. He keeps us in the black. But the evidence, no proof he meant harm, Smith said, dismissive. He's too valuable. A scandal could sink us. My gut plummeted. Lives are on the line. We can't ignore this. You're agreeing, he said, tone icing over. You don't get it. Mark's doing what's best for the firm. The door shut behind me. A hollow thud. He knew. And he didn't care. Post Smith, the office turned frigid. Mark smirked from his desk, a king on his throne. Meetings became a gauntlet me input drowned out, my presence a specter. Colleagues swerved around me, their eyes darting away like I was contagious. Sarah nabbed me in the break room one day, voice low. You okay? You're fading. I wavered, then spilled at Mark's scam, Smith's brush off, the cold shoulder. Her face darkened. That's twisted. I'm with you, Miller. We'll sort this. Relief hit hard. Thanks. With Sarah and Tom, we plotted more evidence, more voices. But progress was a slog. Fear-locked lips tight. One night, my phone buzzed. Coffee shop, 5th St. Mark Intel. No sender. Trap vibe screamed, but I went. A guy in a cap nursed a coffee in the corner. He glanced up, Mr. Lee, construction firm vet. Heard you rattling cages, he said, sliding me a fur. Mark's filthy. Here's the dirt. Emails, contracts, payoffs. My hands shook. Why risk this? Can't let him trash lives, Lee said. Watch yourself, he's a snake. I nodded, gripping the folder. This could tip the scales. Back at work, I dissected Lee's haul, cross-checking it against my stash. It held Mark was neck-deep in grime. But I stayed wary. One slip, and he'd sniff me out. Next day, the office buzzed with whispers, eyes flicking my way. Rumors were spreading Mark's doing, I'd bet. At lunch, I caught 2 coworkers mid-gossip. Miller sabotaging Mark, one said. Jealousy, the other scoffed. Mark's a genius. I clenched my fists, resisting the urge to snap. It had only fanned the flames. I buried myself in work, tuning out the noise. That afternoon, Mark called a team huddle. The room stairs weighed a ton as he took the floor, smug as ever. Accountability, he started. Mistakes cost us. Everyone's got to pull weight. His eyes drilled into me. Miller, you're slipping. Shape up. I swallowed my retort. I'll do my best, Mark. Post-meeting, Tom grabbed me. He's targeting you. Watch out. I know, I said. No backing down now. That night, an email pinged. Stop digging, or else. Anonymous. My stomach iced over. Mark? Someone else? I shot it to Sarah and Tom, and we huddled in a corner. This is dangerous, Sarah said. Police time? Not yet, I countered. Need more for a crime. Stick to the plan. Tom nodded. Let's build it tight. The harassment ramped a packed computer, trash desk, missing files. Each jab screamed, quit. I didn't. With Sarah and Tom, I rigged hidden cameras, recorded every word. If Mark wanted war, I'd be ready. One night, leaving late, I sensed a shadow tailing me. Footsteps synced with mine. I bolted, ducking into a packed bar, losing them in the crowd. Shaken, I dialed Sarah. Someone's following me. Mark's work, I think. Stay put, she said. I'm coming. She scooped me up, and we hit her place, where Tom waited. This is insane, he said. Authorities now. Agreed, Sarah said. But let's lock it down first. We burned the night compiling docs, tapes, statements. By dawn, we had a fortress of a case. I booked another shot with Smith, steel in my spine. He looked wary as I strode in. Miller, what now? Irrefutable proof, I said, dropping the dossier. Mark's done, he sighed, flipping through, his face blanched. This is bad. Yeah, I said. Lives, not just profits. He paused, then nodded. You're right. I can't dodge this. Relief crashed over me. Next steps? Investigation starts now, he said. Mark's toast. I left, lighter. Justice was close. Smith's vow lit a spark, but I knew Mark wouldn't fold easy. I braced for his counterpunch. Next day, the office hummed with investigation rumors. Mark stormed into Smith's office, door slamming. Muffled shouts leaked out. He emerged, glaring daggers at me before retreating. He knew I'd lit the fuse. That afternoon, Smith summoned me. He sat with HR and a lawyer, faces grim. Miller, your role in this, Smith said. We need to talk. My role? I frowned. Your claims, the lawyer said. We must verify them. It's legit, I shot back. Docs, emails, witnesses. We'll check, HR said. No leaks understood? Got it, I said, irritation prickling. Were they stalling? The investigation crawled, tension thickening the air. Mark got administrative leave, but his cronies lingered, their hostility loud. One morning, a note on my desk. You're dead in red ink. I ran it to HR. They waved it off as a joke. Sarah and Tom fretted. This is nuts, Sarah said. Take a breather. Can't, I said. Looks like guilt if I bail. Tom nodded. We finished this. I kept feeding the investigation evidence, testimony, hours of grind. One night, working late, I heard footsteps. The door creaked. Mark, what are you doing here? I demanded, fear masked by steel. Talking, he said too calm. You've screwed me, Miller. You screwed yourself. I fired back. Fraud lives at risk. He laughed, bitter. Noble, huh? You're a pawn in a bigger game. What game? Power, he said. Smith's in on it. You're wasting your breath. My blood chilled. Bullshit. Is it? He smirked. Why'd he drag his feet? I wanted to deny it, but it fit. Mark left, and I sat, reeling. If Smith was dirty, I was screwed. Next day, I called a whistleblower lawyer, spilling everything. He took my case, urging more proof. I pivoted, hunting Smith's tracks. Hacked the email server reckless, but desperate hand found gold. Smith and Mark plotting the cuts. He'd known. I was prepping to go public when Smith called me in. Investigation's done, he said. Mark's fired, designs fixed. And you? I pressed. What? His eyes narrowed. Emails, I said. You signed off on it. His face flushed. Out of context. I trusted Mark. Liar, I said. I've got proof. He leaned in, voice tight. Go public and you'll kill the firm. Think of your team. I am, I said. And the people in that tower. He slumped. What do you want? Your resignation, I said. And fixes. A beat then. Fine. I'm out tomorrow. I walked away, victorious but bruised. Smith's exit sparked chaos. The board tapped an interim CEO, launched an audit. Mark faced fraud charges. Others got snared. I was cleared, praised. New CEO Lisa Chen called me in. You've got guts, she said. Lead Skyline Tower. Stunned, I took it. We rebuilt the plan safe, green, true to our vision. Construction rolled smooth and the tower rose, a testament to grit. On completion day, I stood on the observation deck, Chicago sprawling below. Sarah and Tom flanked me, beaming. We did it, Sarah said. You led. No, I said. We all did, for what's right. The sunset glowed, and peace settled in. The fight had scarred, but it had forged something stronger.